Welcome to the Cables to Clouds podcast. Cloud adoption is on the rise, and many network infrastructure professionals are being asked to adopt a hybrid approach. As individuals who have already started this journey, we would like to empower those professionals with the tools and the knowledge to bridge the gap. Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Cables to Clouds podcast. My name is Chris Miles at BGP Main on X. Sorry, not X, Twitter. See, I tried to not say it, and I said the wrong word.
You're fired.
My bad. I didn't mean to do that. But yeah, joining me, as always, my beautiful co-host Tim McConaughey at Juan Golbez and Alex Perkins at Bumps in the Wire on Twitter. We have a very special guest joining us today. So we have Chris Williams, aka Mistwire, as many probably know him in the Twitter sphere.
Hey everybody.
Hey Chris, thanks for coming on. Chris is pretty big on social media. If you haven't seen him, he's actually I thought I'll just throw it over to you, Chris. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do. What makes you tick.
I can't tell if pretty big on social media is an indictment or a compliment.
You're a pretty tall man on social media.
I'm a giant human that happens to take pictures of himself and do selfies. Ugh. Hey everyone, my name is Chris Williams. I am the developer advocate manager for North America for HashiCorp. I am also an AWS hero, a VMware vExpert. I have a lot of certifications. I run a couple of user groups. I have my own podcast. And I like doing stuff in public. I like learning in public, and I like sharing my knowledge and helping other people level up, whether that goes with cloud or programming or networking or virtualization or even just career advice. I try to help people skill up in IT stuff that I know about. That's it. That's me. Good night, everybody.
No questions.
No further questions, Your Honor.
No, very, very good answer. Yeah, you're very much a person that lives in public, and I admire that because at some points I'm like, I don't know what Chris does in private because all of this is out here in the open. So, we don't need to get into that. But
my wife does not hate my career, but 9 times out of 10, she'll be like, do not post that on social media.
That's nice.
Yeah, I get that too.
But so we kind of wanted to just bring Chris on to have kind of a free form conversation about probably many different things. But I think one of the first things that we might get into is VBrownbag. So VBrownbag has been something that's been around for it's been quite a few years now, right? And I think have you been a part of it
now? 12 or 13 years now.
Have you been a part since day one, or is this?
No.
Came in recently. Okay.
So VBrownbag started 10, 12, 13 years ago as an effort with Cody Bunch and Alistair Cook and the original folks. Everybody was studying for their VMware certifications back then, the VCP, the VCIX, the VCNV, all those things. And they're like, you know what? We've been studying in private. Let's just go ahead and hit the record button on a camera and turn this into a YouTube channel. The name started off as Professional VMware or VMware Professional. I forget what the original name was. But eventually they were like, well, let's make this a little bit more agnostic. It's not just VMware stuff. It's technical things that we want to learn about because there's a lot of, even back then, there was a lot of peripheral things that you needed to learn about. Linux, Git, version control, Ansible, Puppet. There was a lot of things around it. So they agnosticized, if that's a word. They changed the name to VBrownbag because corporate brown bag lunches were where everybody came together to, learn something during lunch. And they're like, okay, well, it's a brown bag lunch, but nobody's present. So it's virtual. So we're going to call it VBrownbag. So it started off as getting your certification. So how to study for your VMware cert or any kind of cert that was available. We wanted to do a learning track on. I latched onto VBrownbag at one of the VM Worlds. I was about to say VMware Explorer, but that's not what they were called back then. They called them VM Worlds, like God intended. And I met John and Al and all of them face to face for the first time. And I was like, you guys helped me get my VCP 4, I think it was. This was a long time ago. VCP 4, VCP 5. And I said, I really appreciate all the stuff that you've done. And then I said the fatal words, is there anything that I could do to help too? And they're like, well, you just signed your life away.
Yeah, actually.
Now that you mention it. So that's actually how I got into community. I was not a user group leader at the time. I was not doing anything publicly facing. I just liked learning and I love learning, I hate sitting for certifications, but I really enjoy the learning process to prep for a certification. So I just started doing that in public with the guys. And then I was like, okay, how do we make this get bigger? Not for the sake of trying to be big or anything, but how do we appeal to a broader audience and how do we help more people level up than just folks going for their VMware certs? Because AWS was coming out at that time. And the first time I logged into my console, I actually just looked at the first AWS account that I created, and that was in 2011. And I was like,
early adopter.
When I created that AWS account and I first started creating services and resources in AWS, that was it. I mean, the lights came on, the angels sang, the sunbeam came down from heaven. And I was like, holy crap, this is going to change everything. Because up until that point, I was the schlub, with the Cat 5 cable between my teeth, crawling underneath the floorboards of the colo, trying to, hook the sands up and everything and my career was, I started off as a CCNA, got my A+, got my CCNA, started off in the networking sphere. Then I got into the sysadmin sphere. Then I got into the DB8 storage sphere. And by the time I finished, I had touched everything with the exception of actually programming. When I left corporate enterprise work, I was an EA over at WWT. So I was at the top, EA meaning enterprise architect. I was at the top of that level. And then I flipped over and became a DA over at HashiCorp, which was a complete career change. And so VBrownbag was the catalyst for so many jumping points in my career. And every time I went to a different jumping point, I would then create a series for that. So we had the VMware series, we had the AWS series, we had the Git series, we did like 2 years of Python. Every time that I wanted to learn something new, I just drug, kicking and screaming sometimes, the best minds of that field onto the show. And then after we stopped recording, I would then pick their brains. Okay, what are the top 5 books that you could show me that I can then go read and then create more content for? So that's what VBrownbag has been under my stewardship, I guess.
When did this start? When did you really start stewarding, I guess, all the VBrownbag stuff? Well, was that right after when you said the VM world where you talked to them?
Yeah. I mean, so when I say stewardship, I mean, everybody has been pitching it. I mean, anybody that has ever been a host of VBrownbag has never really stopped being a host. They might have not done a show in like 5 years,
right?
But they could jump on tomorrow and continue doing what if they wanted to. So we have if you look at the number of co-hosts and presenters on the webpage, the number of hosts that we have is almost as long as the number of presenters that we've had. We have a long lineage of folks that have been in there.
Yeah.
I would say that for the past 6 or 7 years, I've been the most consistent, but I'm not I don't run it. I don't own it. It's not my thing. It is very much a community effort. It is very much a co-host driven thing. We recently brought on Sean Doyle, Roger White, and Shala Warner, aka at Gifted Lane, as co-hosts. And we are now doing kind of like the it used to be just one presenter and one host. And I kind of like the multi co-host format like you guys are doing, where different questions can be asked from different professional backgrounds to the same person and just kind of like have this fun vibe going on. So we've been doing that for half of 2023. And and now we're in 2024. We're continuing to do it, and it's working out really well. I do what I'm good at, like the video editing and the cutting and just being the big dumb head asking stupid questions. And Sean asks the AI questions. Roger asks the security questions. Shala asks like the DevOps and cloud engineering questions. And it works really, really well.
Yeah, I was going to say, I joined one of the recent webinars not too long ago, and it was, I'll say it was very relaxed, but it became very informative because you guys were just riffing for, a good hour or so. But it was super cool because I don't remember exactly. I think it was one of the first ones that you guys did with this new format, maybe the first or second one. I think it was last year for sure, in 2023. But, yeah, we're super cool because, like you said, everyone kind of has their own vertical that they're working in, and then that kind of played into the dynamic and how you guys talk about things, and it was very useful. It was quite good.
And we're actually changing the time now. So VBrownbags are usually at lunchtime, but VBrownbag has always been 8:30 at night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. It's been tough since the end of the pandemic because it's people don't want to be in Zoom sessions all day long and then join another Zoom session at night. Yep. So we're actually toying with moving the format up to a lunchtime. So we're now trying to do them at 1 p.m. Eastern, which is noon Central, roughly around the lunchtime of the U.S. time zones, to see if that if people are actually willing to take a lunch break and join us.
Yeah, that's the new form of the lunch and learn, I guess, right?
Yeah,
right.
And that was kind of like you said, that was kind of the goal, or not the goal necessarily, but that was kind of the theme originally, right? Was that kind of lunch and learn type of behavior.
We're actually playing with making fun of the brown bag type lunch, and like everybody have like a VBrownbag branded brown bag, and then what do you got in your brown bag? And, we're trying to toy with it. I mean, it's been 13 years. It's been going on for almost 13 years now. So trying to inject not just like the new technology stacks, but like a new vibe to the show and everything. Because now that we've got 4 people on, why don't we just start taking ideas and seeing what works from the larger audience as well? So we've got the live Twitch stream now. We've got the YouTube stream. We're fielding questions live from both audiences simultaneously. We're moderating and letting the presenter do their thing, but then also taking the good questions from the audience. I do have a couple of friends that tend to join and start asking silly questions. Looking at you, Richard
always
Boyd.
happens.
Yeah, boy.
There's always one.
There's always, yeah.
And
usually it's me, but
I can't wait till you guys start virtually trading snacks, like someone, Shala's pudding cup,
hand the potato chip to you.
Oh, there you go.
See, it's
yes.
doable.
It's a magic show now, everybody.
If it happens, you heard it here first. That's
right. If they build that in.
Attribution to Chris Miles.
Thank you. I'll take that. That being said, I mean, what as of right now, the way it stands, obviously, like you said, VBrownbag has been around for a very long time. Probably the target audience has also shifted a little bit. Like it's expanded. It's kind of moved along with the industry trends and things like that. Who would you say is the target audience for VBrownbag right now? Is it more general, or is it more focused at this point?
The original target audience was people like me. Folks that were halfway through their career, looking to get certified to maintain relevancy in what they were doing. That demographic is now turning into the gray-bearded, curmudgeonly IT old guy, I guess. Oh, I hate saying that. So what I am trying to do with the addition of the new hosts and everything like that is to expand the role of that demographic. I'm trying to engender folks that are afraid of code. So, I mean, the writing on the wall right now is very far and few in between people are going to be actual hardware folks.
Right.
The days of assembling, pizza box systems and slapping them into racks and stacks and cages and everything like that, that's not the majority of folks anymore. It used to be. They still need to know how networking works, and they still need to know how to connect hard drives to systems, but they need to know how to do all of those programmatically through an API, from version control. So the folks that are in ops today need to know how to do all of that stuff from a conceptual level and from a logical level, but not actually from a physical level, which is really weird and hard for me to grok, because I assembled those things manually with my hands. So turning that into an API in my head is, I would argue, a little bit easier than the folks that have no concept of how things work underneath the covers, because everything's been abstracted away from them. So I'm trying to cross that bridge on VBrownbag and help folks get from point A to point B without actually taking a switch apart on camera.
So this is kind of interesting, and I've been seeing this more and more around Twitter recently, and I'm sure you probably have as well. As more and more as this whole AI thing really gets into high gear here, I keep seeing people saying that that enterprises are going to be building more on-prem to support like AI type workloads. And so I'm wondering, first of all, I think I've talked about this on the show before. I kind of disagree generally with that, because I think most people won't be able to afford the power and cooling and hardware for it. But having said that, there could still be this kind of renaissance, if you will, of on-prem as more as cloud and on-prem kind of even out and become a little bit more hybrid. So I don't think we've seen the end of it, and there'll always be somebody that has to pull cables. But I agree generally. I think that
I wasn't trying to say like the death of the data center person is nigh. You're absolutely right. There is always going to be a need for like localized compute. It's just not going to be as prevalent as it used to be. And that skill set is going to become much more rarefied, I think. Whereas before, like when I was coming up, it was, okay, we've got these two servers and we need to network them together. Chris, break out a book and figure it out. Oh, this system needs more processing power, or this system needs more. Chris, figure out what more is and then how to jam it in there, if that's possible. That knowledge is, I honestly believe that folks when I got into tech, I think that it's easier for us to grok how systems break down in the world today. Because if you look at any process, it breaks down into your 4 food groups: RAM, memory, CPU, and disk. If you understand the interrelation between the 4 food groups and how, when you're trying to go from point A to point B and move your ones and zeros from point A to point B, what are the potential things that can bottleneck you, and what the markers are for seeing how those things are bottlenecking, that's a feel that you get after doing it for a while in the physical space. When you're just clicking on a website and it takes longer than not for something to come up and everybody's losing their mind, it's harder for somebody that has been born into that very abstracted world to methodically step through the process. I have this interview question that I ask people to figure out what they know. And I say, my interview question is, you type www.hashicorp.com into a web browser. Walk me through, in as eye-wateringly detailed as humanly possible, what it takes from the time that you hit enter to the time that the HashiCorp website comes up on your screen.
Yeah, it's a good one.
And I've had people talk about bus speeds. I've had people talk about keyboard pass through. I've had people there's the DNS piece and there's the server piece, and then but I've had people talk about ones and zeros going to the disk on the back end. But you start to really understand what they understand about how this whole thing works, because if you grew up in networking, you're going to answer it completely differently from if you grew up in coding.
It's very true. And I totally agree with you, by the way, on the abstraction layer, if you will. So my first job, I was in a NOC, and that was my first job at networking. Not my first job forever. First job in networking, sorry, was in a NOC. And I came from nothing. I got my CCNA in a few months, and I went straight to a NOC. So I had never actually even touched a physical piece of Cisco kit, right? And I knew how to configure it. I could do all this other stuff, right? But in terms of the actual physical, like in the rack gear, like I didn't know it. Like I didn't know it, and it ended up being a problem. Like, there's things that I was telling people that people needed to do, or like I was kind of visualizing it differently than it really was. So I completely agree. There's a different.
It's the powder blue layer. Cable. Put it in there. Not the green one.
If you haven't cut your fingers on the rack bolts, right?
Sacrifice your blood to the blood god.
Yes. Those old the SCSI cages from the old compact server. Maybe I'm showing my age here, but the old compact servers had these machined cages for the SCSI disks that were razor sharp. If you pulled your hand away and you weren't bleeding profusely, you were a genius.
The old cage nuts without the tool, right? Like that's the fun one. You don't have the tool. You got your fingers or maybe a screwdriver, but you're definitely sacrificing blood.
You stick some keys in there and try to wedge them out.
I still have my Leatherman that I always carried around with me in the data center just to get those little bastards, the pinchy ones. Oh.
Yep, that's the ones.
Yeah, so let's actually transition this a little bit. So we've talked about VBrownbag and kind of the goals and where that's moved along. Let's talk about Chris a little bit. I will say one thing that's been funny. I think back when like we said when we just started recording is I think. Technically, Chris and I were coworkers for a brief period of time, and I remember seeing some of your posts on LinkedIn. And I don't know if this was still this way when you were at Worldwide, or if this happened strictly when you moved over to HashiCorp. I remember you always had the title in your social media profile of cloud therapist.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing that and be like, "What the hell does that mean?" So let's open that up a little bit, and exactly what does that mean, and where do you how do you help people with that?
All right, so that title has a number of lives, and I'm going to try to tie them all together in a common thread right now. My university degree is in psychology. I specialized in conflict resolution. That was the thing that's what I thought I wanted to be. I got halfway through my master's in psychology. The university offered me a fellowship, and I apologized to my professor, who I greatly disappointed, because she went to bat for me, got me the money to join, to have a fellowship. And then I pissed off halfway through because I was in the dorm room, and I fell in love with Doom. I love playing Doom. To the extent that me and my CS roommate started playing together, and I was like, we can shoot each other if I figure out how to network these systems together. So I went out, I bought a 4-port hub, I bought 2 network cards, I connected mine and Tom's computers together. We started beating the piss out of each other. He invited all of his friends over. I bought an 8-port hub. This was back before. I mean, this was like broadcasting and all the ugliness. Port 666 for Doom, all the things. I wired the dorm room up for effectively a LAN party. Tom's proctor, his counselor, his guidance counselor for the university, came in one day and saw all 8 of us going at it with each other, and they were like, "This is absolutely amazing, Tom. We love what you've done with the networking in this room." And he was like, I didn't do this. It was the psych major. The university hired me to rewire the entire CS department, all of the buildings.
Wow.
Nice.
So I quickly got my A+ in my CCNA. They then paid me the same amount that my tuition was for the year. And I was like, this is going to be far more lucrative than being a psychologist. So I immediately quit. I got my MCSE, and the rest is history. As my career went on, like let's flash forward 20 years. I have gone up in the ranks. I went from, solutions engineer to solutions architect to enterprise architect. At the pinnacle of my pre-DA career, I was an EA for WWT. And I was the one that was running these multi-million-dollar projects at Fortune 100s. And honestly, I kind of stopped. I mean, with the exception of the stuff that I was doing in the user groups and on the podcast and on my learning in public at night things, most of my daytime was counseling people. It was literally getting people to get into their get along t-shirts and make them figure out how to, it stopped being technical. My problems, the project problems that were the biggest ones, the hardest ones, were never technical. It was always two people that thought the other person was a fucking asshole, and I'm not going to do what he says because screw him.
Yeah.
And it just turned into these pissing matches. And so I got a reputation for being injected into these projects that were on fire and everybody was not getting along, and getting people to get along, to the extent that they started calling me the therapist. And I was like, screw that. I'm the cloud. And all of my gigs were cloud gigs. So that turned into the cloud therapist. So people started calling me the cloud therapist at Worldwide. And then that just kind of snowballed. And I was like, that's actually pretty cool. I'll stick with that. So then I officially changed. So my boss at Worldwide, he was like, Chris, you're an AWS hero. We were at reInvent together, and he saw all of the hubbub and hoopla around being an AWS hero. So he said, I want you to become a Worldwide hero. Do for Worldwide what you are doing for AWS. And I said, okay, let me change my title, give me $250,000 and access to, a bunch of speakers inside of WWT. And he said, okay, done. And my goal was then to start figuring out how to inject WWT speakers into all of the different user groups for AWS across the United States. Because user group leaders need exactly two things. They need speakers and they need money. And so I said, if you give me speakers and money, I can make every single logo for every single user group across America say, thank you, WWT, and really get the name out there. I then 3 months later left, but not before setting up that entire pipeline. I created a Python script that scraped all of Meetup for the most attended user groups with the most number of attendees and blah, blah, blah. And I had all the email addresses of all the users. And then I had a book of folks inside of WWT that would have been great speakers, and which I had been using for VBrownbag up until that point. Because every time I go into a new company, I immediately start trying to find presenters for VBrownbag, because that's what I do. Excuse me. So the cloud therapist title was perfect for me because, one, it draws people in. They're like, I'm sorry, your title's what?
Right.
And so then I get to go through all of that, which, one, tells customers that I know what I'm talking about and that I can get shit done. Two, engages folks that want to work with me on VBrownbag and present to get things going. And three, it's a unique title out there. So when I put that on stuff, people remember me.
Yeah.
Ta-da! That's it. All done.
That's an awesome story. That's
good, man.
Really good.
Yeah, that's really good.
It's funny that it relates back to the fact that like the origin was just that you were making teams work together that, hated each other at one point, because I think that is the most prominent thing I've seen across all the jobs that I've had, is that like the technology, if you put it in like in perspective, it's a cakewalk. It's always always forcing people to work together, which is the tough part.
The politics.
100%.
I want to use this framework. Well, I want to use this framework. No, screw you. This one's easier. It's disingenuous that they call it soft skills. because they are far, far harder than hard skills.
I mean, technology, generally speaking, works the same every time, right? You follow the formula and technology spits out whatever the hell you put into it, right?
It's the people that suck. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
I mean that very tongue in cheek. People don't suck. It's people want to be heard. I mean, well, everybody wants to be heard. Everybody wants to be appreciated. Everybody has the angle that they're coming from. There's very few people at a company that are genuinely malicious and want to see the downfall of the company. Everybody wants to do what they think is the best. And they also kind of want to be the person that was right. Everybody loves being right. So if you take all of those knowledge points and then apply them in an open and honest forum with everybody present, 9 times out of 10, you can get where you need to go.
Yeah, I think that's just good advice generally. That's not even a tech thing, right? That's just generally getting people to work together type of thing.
And that's the irony of it. I mean, I now use my old rusty conflict resolution skills far more than I use my command line skills.
The full circle, right? Came all the way back
circle
around,
life.
Right back to it. Yep.
Is Elton John going to start singing? This is perfect.
Yeah, he's.
We don't have the licensing funding for that.
Sorry, we can't afford that.
Fair use. We can get at least 5 seconds. The circ. I'm not going to sing.
So all that being said, that's really cool. I'm curious to hear how that's working for you over at Hashi. Like, what kind of problems are you helping people solve at HashiCorp? Because I think, like you said, like it's funny that your trajectory or your career was you started networking and then moved over to the other side. We would consider that moving to the dark side. Going from networking to database admin. I'm surprised you're not crazy, first of all. But
he never did collab. He never did collab though. So
no, that's true. That's true. That's the unforgivable part. No, just kidding. We love our collab folks out there. But I'm curious, what kind of complex problems are you helping people solve over at HashiCorp? Now that HashiCorp has kind of like their product set has obviously reached a high level of maturity. To the point where people forking things off to maintain certain aspects of it. I'm just curious to hear how that's going for you. What kind of problems are people seeing today in cloud with use of HashiCorp products that you're helping with? So my focus, I'm the DA manager for North America. So the team, each one of the members of the team have different angles, different tool set expertise. They come from a different background. So there's no one angle that we tackle. Our folks come at the problems that our customers and that the community are having from the angle that they know how to help them from. My perspective is going back to learning. I love to help people learn how to skill up. Recently, another one of the AWS heroes, Andrew Brown, and we did this Terraform bootcamp for Terraform Beginner Bootcamp, the hilariously named Terraform Beginner Bootcamp.
It was so good, but you were so right. It was a beginner bootcamp, man. Oh my God. It was great though. It was really, really good.
It's great. We are actually now in the process of creating the Terraform, So HashiCorp is now going to be releasing the Terraform Professional certification. That's going to be coming out in I'm going to say April.
You heard it here first.
Tentatively G8 for April. And Andrew and I are currently in the process of creating a Terraform Professional bootcamp designed to help you pass the Terraform Professional certification.
That's awesome. Yeah,
I'm in it.
We will be a little bit more rigorous. Okay, so let me put an asterisk on the boot camp. If you took the boot camp, chances are really, really, really good that you are going to pass the Terraform Associate certification, not because of the content of the boot camp, but because of the fire hose of information that gets thrust upon you as a result of being in the boot camp. I think week 2, we were making a custom Go provider. That is not beginner bootcamp material by any stretch of the imagination. Kudos to Andrew for going so far off the rails, but it was good real world experience. It was fantastic real world Terraform experience.
I took the boot camp. I thought it was awesome. I learned way more about Git than I ever thought I would learn from a Terraform boot camp, which was actually good.
Yep.
And I have to admit, I was sitting there, whichever week it was. I don't remember if it was 2 or 3 or when it was. We were building our own providers. I was sitting there hacking Go together, watching the video, and I was just like,
what is
beginner
happening?
my ass, man. Like, this is bullshit.
Yep. Okay. So if there are folks in the audience listening right now and they want to pass the Terraform associate certification, do the boot camp, but also go through my free code camp article. So at the same time that we were doing the boot camp, I wrote an article for free code camp on my study notes for passing the associate certification. And I then went and sat the exam using my notes, and I passed easily. So those two things combined will definitely get you over the top, and you will pass your associate. We are now working on professional. That is in the works. As soon as we get the finalized syllabus from education, then we will be starting to crank out the videos for that as well.
Awesome. Chris, you've got yours, right? Your Terraform associate, right?
Terraform associate. I actually just renewed it, like maybe a month or 2 ago. I will say it's a good, appropriately labeled associate exam. Because
let's be honest, it's a little easy.
Yes, it is. I'm glad you said it, so I don't have to say it. But it is a little easy, especially if you're someone that works day to day with Terraform. That's a cakewalk. But the thing is that what Tim just said that I think I really like is that you learned more about Git in a Terraform beginner bootcamp than you did Terraform, because I actually think Terraform is that easy to learn. Like the concepts that you need to apply to use Terraform to provision infrastructure as code is relatively easy. The issue is, in the real world, it's typically not just ran ad hoc like that.
Exactly.
It's incorporated into these, pipelines that are typically deploying, apps and used by developers. It's not for deploying infrastructure. When you try to do it with infrastructure, it gets very, very complicated. I think it's a better thing that you start with that and then kind of lean into Terraform afterward.
So Andrew actually just released his GitHub Foundations certification thing. He gave me a free link to the course, so I'm about to go blaze through that. Hopefully, it's not all about PHP and Ruby, and is actually about GitHub. Shout out to Andrew, I love you.
It's so true, though.
And so that is, it's weird because, being that old sysadmin turned EA turned cloud therapist, Git was never like high on my radar. But if you're a developer, that's literally like step 2, pick up a programming language and then pick up Git. So there's this chasm that I am trying to help in my role as a DA at HashiCorp, I am trying to help other folk like me cross that chasm and figure it out. And, content like Andrew's stuff is very valuable for that.
Did you, you said you're the DA manager, but did you start as the manager, or did you start as one of the kind of like specialties?
So I have never been a DA.
Interesting.
I was an EA at Worldwide when I started having a conversation with my now boss at reInvent. And she walked up to me and we had known each other from a prior past. And she was like, "Hey, Chris." And I was like, "Hey, Melissa, how you doing?" And she's like, "Hey, do you want to come work for HashiCorp?" And I am never not looking. Like if somebody comes up to me and says, "Hey, we've got a job opportunity for you to taste test pina coladas for $1 million an hour on St. John. All you got to do is stick your toes in the sand." I'm never not looking. So I said, what do you got? What's going on, Melissa? And she said, "Would you like to be, as she said, behold my job board of opportunities," because she'd written everything up on the whiteboard at the conference. And there was a DA role and there's a DA manager role. And I was like, and I I have friends that are DAs. And I was like, well, tell me about the DA role. And she was like, no, I'm going to tell you about the DA manager role because that's where I want you. And I said, that's a horrible idea because I've never even been a DA before. And so we went back and forth, not on the floor, but like later on. I spent about 2.5, 3 hours trying to convince her why it would be a terrible idea to hire me. And every con that I came up with, she was like, actually, that's a pro. And this is why. I said, I've never been a DA. And she said, that's not true. You've been a DA at night for free for 15 years and you just haven't been getting paid for it. And I was like, oh, that hurts. So then I said, well, I haven't been a manager in a very long period of time. She's like, that is also not true because you have been the EA on these multi-million-dollar projects running minimum of 20 people for years. You can manage people. You can sign people's time cards. You're not a moron. And, the list went on and I was like, reason 17 why you should never hire Chris Williams. And she was in false. She just swatted down all of my things, all of my protests. And then the final nail in the coffin was she was going to pay me more to do my night hobby for HashiCorp than I was making as an EA at Worldwide. And I was like, sold.
Yeah, it's not a hard one not a hard sell, probably.
So I came on, I talked with all the members of the team. I actually had a number of friends inside of HashiCorp. Ironically, Chris, a lot of ex-Worldwiders, Joe Weber, Sean Doyle, a lot of really smart folks that whose opinions I trusted. Mm. And they're like, yes, you'd love it over here. You would be amazing in that role. I talked to some of my DA friends over at AWS, like Emily Freeman and Linda and Brooke Jameson and those folks. And they're like, I was afraid. I was afraid because it was going to be a career change. And I didn't know if I would be a good DA. And they're like, shut up, just go do it because you'd be amazing. You've been doing this forever and you just don't know. And they were right. I came over. It's been almost a year to the day that I got into the role. And I still wake up every morning going, I cannot believe that they are paying me to do this. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Any minute now, they're going to bust down the door and be like, the jig is up.
We have seen through your ruse. Finally, you fraud. Get the hell out of here. Give us our money back. I'm waiting for it. I fully expect it.
Well, that's great, man. I'm glad to hear that, it's been so successful for you and that you enjoy it. That's increasingly rare in this industry, I can say. So,
yeah,
not for myself, of course, I'm having the time of my life, but, yeah, definitely increasingly rare.
I don't know who's listening to this one, but it's early 2024 right now. And things are kind of shitty in tech. There's a number of layoffs happening. CEOs are not feeling the value. So they're forcing people to come back into the office. If somebody's listening to this in 2050 and you hear the term why RTO ended the world, that's return to office.
We just recorded an episode about the state of affairs, as it were.
Yeah. There's some good takes out there. I mean, honestly, the take that I go for is these companies got into like these long-term leases and they have these buildings that they're just bleeding money out of. And they're trying to figure out a way to reduce headcount because they overhired during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And instead of genuinely being honest with people and just saying, this is the situation and we need to, they don't want to lay people off because that's quote unquote bad. So they're making people who live in Virginia RTO to their closest office, which happens to be in Austin. Oh, you can't make it? Well, then we're going to pip you.
Right.
And they're just being dicks about it.
Yeah. Just let them weed themselves.
And that is an actual example. That's an actual real-time example.
Yeah. Totally believe that.
I definitely know some employers who have against all better odds enforced the old RTO thing in a way that's not even possible to really comply with for most people, right? So they're like, that's too bad. See ya.
Yeah, it happened with me. Like I did this thing in 2019 where I moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma for an incentive for remote workers. and obviously that was in 2019. So the next year,
pre-pandemic,
there was a lot of people trying to get in on that after the fact, right? Because they had just gone remote. They want to move to somewhere cheaper. So a lot of people oh well, I'm allowed to work remote now. Let's move to Oklahoma. And then within 6 to 8 months, when people started coming back, they were like, yeah, you got to come back. It's like, but they fully let people move away halfway across the country. And only to tell them that, that they have to undo that.
Yeah. I remember all you can move wherever you want. We'll, let you move. And, unless you move somewhere crazy, we won't worry about changing your pay and all this other stuff. Right. And then, yeah, you're supported. And then 2 years later, oh, nope, sorry. Actually, we fucked with you.
Is this a safe space where I can go on my pro-union rant, or no? Let's just.
Oh man, you would not be the first. All I can say is you would not be the first.
Irony. Yeah, the irony.
You should have been on the last episode.
Yeah,
we should have had you in for the last episode as well.
I've lived in a lot of different countries, and we get some things right, and we get a couple of things wrong. But the things that we get wrong, pretty big wrongs.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is that the few things we get wrong are glaringly large wrongs.
And that is an entire other podcast.
Yeah. We'll have to bring you back for that one. Oh boy.
We will. Yes, we will.
What's Wrong with the US by cloud therapist Chris Williams. Step 1.
A 20th part series.
Hold on. I got my book ready. All right.
Chapter 1.
Back to tech. Hey everybody. How are we doing tonight?
All right. Well, yeah, I think this has been a great conversation, but we should probably wrap it up at some point. So let's reel this in a bit. And I know, Chris, it's very sad to go, but I think as we've learned, we'll probably have you back.
We'll have you back at some point anyway.
Yeah,
I would love to be on again.
Yeah,
we only scratched the surface.
Exactly. There's plenty more to talk about. So, So once again, thanks for coming on Cables to Clouds, man. We really appreciate it. Obviously, we'll have to. Do more with potentially more with VBrownbag in the upcoming months, weeks, years, etc. But
I would love to have y'all on.
Yeah, it'd be cool. It'd be awesome.
We'll crash.
Yeah, we will absolutely crash. We love crashing parties. We do it all the time. So, I guess with that, I'll leave you any closing thoughts or anything you want to plug before we wrap up.
So we've got for those interested, we have the Terraform professional certification coming out pretty soon. So Andrew and I will be creating some content around that. I will also be making some videos around Vault and GitHub Foundations. And, as I continue learning, I will do it live with all the bumps and bruises and then share that out so that other folks can help level up too. My big phrase is all boats rise with the tide. And I'm a firm believer in that. And I appreciate what you guys do to also help people elevate their game.
Thanks. Yeah, rising tide floats all boats or something like that. Yeah, totally agree.
Ooh, that sounds better. Yeah, I'll go with that. I stole that from you, Tim.
It's all yours.
We've generated a few ideas on this one, so that's good. All right. Well, with that being said, we will wrap up. This has been yet another episode of the Cables to Clouds podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please reach out. Let us know. Subscribe, hit all the buttons. Every button you can hit, just hit all of them, please. Beep, boop. Yeah, beep, boop. If you didn't like today's episode, call Tim on his cell phone personally.
Yeah.
And talk to him about it.
You've all got the number. Just don't stop pretending you don't. So just call
Message me. I'll give you Tim's phone number. You can call him, and then we'll address that privately. So
it's the 867-5309, right?
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
Jenny.
That's my stage name.
Sounds good. All right, guys.
Your stage name's
appreciate
Jenny?
it.
That's so weird.
the outro that keeps on going forever. And now we're actually saying goodbye. Cheers, everyone. Bye. Hi, everyone. It's Chris, and this has been the Cables to Clouds podcast. Thanks for tuning in today. If you enjoyed our show, please subscribe to us in your favorite podcatcher, as well as subscribe and turn on notifications for our YouTube channel to be notified of all our new episodes. Follow us on socials at Cables to Clouds. You can also visit our website for all of the show notes at cablestoclouds.com. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.